it comes back to the power of the story. I think it's about empathy fundamentally, and I believe in everyone's capacity to have empathy, and so we try to tell stories that connects us human to human in order to do that. I learned a fact recently that said that we are 22 times more likely to remember a story than a fact. You know, after many years of working as a photojournalist and then a documentary filmmaker, I've found myself to climate storytelling. And I found that, you know, I had really focused on the refugee crisis, and it was kind of a penny drop moment thinking, God, forced migration is going to become so much dramatically worse because of climate. Climate is actually not a single issue thing. It's not happening in an abstract way far away. You know, we were talking earlier about polar bears and wildlife. It is actually a deeply human problem. And that the stories that we told about climate had to get better. You know, when I finally 3 years ago started Earthrise, that was very much at the center of our focus, was how do we tell stories in a hopeful and optimistic way for people who were not out on the street protesting, because we knew we wanted to access a different audience. How could we access the friends who weren't out on the street and actually know there's a problem but feel so paralyzed by it, don't know how to take action, feel they're part of the problem and only complicit and don't believe themselves to be agents of change.
How can we all discover the stories within us to drive the change and empower those around us?
Yeah, it's funny, in journalism there were these old tropes, I'm sure you've heard them as a journalist yourself, of shining a light in the dark and giving a voice to the voiceless. And actually, I think they're sort of outdated tropes in many ways. I think everyone has a voice, and we all have stories to tell. And, you know, storytelling starts at the dinner table often. I've always wanted to find a story about a daughter or children having conversations with their own parents and shaping their views. I think that sort of dynamic that happens in every single family home is crucial. And some of the hardest conversations we have are with the people that we love, and they are often difficult conversations, but so important to share stories, yes, on stages, yes, on social media, but also with the people that we love. And I often use it as a kind of barometer. You know, are the people in my life, have I won them over? Have I drawn them to this conversation? And you know, I can't say I have. So the work continues.
If you think of like storytelling and the ripple effect it can have, is there maybe a specific example or anecdote that pops to mind of that ripple effect in action?
Well, I can think of a remarkable story that I'm very focused on right now. Is the story of an indigenous leader in Brazil called Sonia Guajajara. Her story certainly holds the power of a ripple effect. She has been at the front of the indigenous movement, which before was always really led by men, and so she's kind of pioneered, and she fought a very hard, extraordinary campaign bringing the indigenous movement with her. She not only won that position in Congress, but Lula would then won, and then Lula chose her to become the first ever indigenous minister in Brazil. And I guess I'm inspired by her because of how she's brought people with her, the ripple effect that she's had across the world. She's become very well renowned, and the power, I guess, of the individual and the collective to make change.
What gives you hope in a realm that can sometimes, you know, feel a little grim?
More than sometimes, I fear. It can feel difficult. I think it can feel sometimes like wading through mud, and I think that hope is a sort of intentional choice. I don't know that it always comes easily, to be honest, with the sort of overwhelming momentum of negative news. But I think it is a choice to also look at the good news. I think I'm fundamentally an optimist, and I think about the opportunity. And perhaps, you know, as storytellers, we've often spoken a lot about the sacrifice that we may need to make. But I think equally we need to talk about the opportunity we have to build actually a better world on so many fronts in different ways, to build a better and a fairer world. And so I choose, perhaps with blinkers on, to cling on to a kind of radical optimism, because I want to do this for a long time. And I think, you know, we joke, don't we, in climate, that we're trying to work ourselves out of a job. But I guess I'm under no illusion that it won't be a many few years that we'll be doing this work. And I've seen a lot of people in the movement burn out and leave. And I think that's a tragedy. So I choose hope because it keeps me going.
And what is the one thing you would like us all to do?
I think that climate invites us to sort of lean into discomfort, and I'm very familiar with that feeling of discomfort, you know, the sense of hypocrisy one feels, you know, flying out to a climate conference. It is uncomfortable, but I guess, invite others to lean into it and to ask ourselves questions. And even if a system has benefited us, and it certainly has me, to also challenge it for those it hasn't benefited, and to lean into the conversation. You know, you don't have to have experienced it firsthand to add your voice to the movement, but also we should be inviting in and encouraging and giving a platform to those who have got the lived experience and can shine a light on, you know, the places and the people in which this is having the greatest impact. So lean in, and whatever the opposite of burying your head in the sand is, I encourage you to, even though it might feel uncomfortable at times, to open your eyes.